Let's talk about mastering, especially loudness. I'm going to explain to you today the difference between LUFS and peak level metering. And I'm going to share with you a very cool tip that I do all the time so I can get my masters loud enough for streaming services. What is going on, my friends? Chris Salim here from Mixdown Online. If you're new here on the channel, subscribe to the channel, click that notification bell, share and like if this video is helpful. Okay, let's talk mastering. First, let's check the difference between LUFS metering and peak level metering. Now, if you're wondering what LUFS is, or if you're confused about LUFS, you've seen that on some plugins, even in your own DAW like Cubase Pro, but you're just confused about how an LUFS meter works. So I'm going to explain to you everything that you need to know about this type of metering. LUFS is a metering system that will measure loudness, like perceived loudness in a period of time. If we compare that to True Peak, it is quite different. True Peak levels, like we have on our channels, will measure the volume at any time, okay, compared to a LUFS meter that will measure the perceived loudness over a period of time, which is different. It first started in broadcast when LUFS was first introduced. Basically, you know, back in the day when we were watching a TV show, I don't know if you remember, but you know, you get to a commercial and the commercial was so loud, we needed to just, you know, take the remote and bring down the volume every time we hit a commercial. And so that was a big of a problem. So that's why they introduced LUFS to balance that out. And so basically balance the loudness between the TV commercial and the TV show. So for example, you take two different signals that are reaching a ceiling of -1 DBFS for True Peak level. That doesn't necessarily mean that you will perceive those both signals the same way. Chances are that one signal is going to sound louder to you even if it has the same peak level. So let's jump in Cubase and let me show you an example. So I'm going to use the test generator plugin that I have here in Cubase just to generate a sine tone. I'm going to start by generating a 440 Hertz sine tone. My output level is set up to -1 dB. Okay, so I'm going to activate that. So now I have a sine tone that is at -1 dB. Now if I bring that down to 100 Hertz, it reaches the same output level, but we perceived that sound quieter. So it sounds a bit more quiet than the 440 Hertz. If I select 1000 Hertz, it's going to sound louder than what I had at 440 Hertz. And same if I go up to 10,000 Hertz. Now it's going to sound super loud. All right, so this is basically what loudness is. Same output level, but different levels of loudness. And this is when LUFS is very useful. So if we look at the side of my Cubase, this is where I have access to my LUFS meter. In Cubase, if you're using Cubase Pro, you will find the LUFS meter on the right zone of your mix console or project window. So once you have the right zone activated, you click on the meter tab on the top right, and then you go down and you click on loudness, and that will bring up the loudness meter. I'm going to reset it by clicking on the reset loudness, and then I'm going to explain to you later on what those parameters are. But first, let's bring back that sine tone and look at the parameters that I have here. So at 440 Hertz, I have my True Peak level at -1. Then I have, let's look at the all those parameters, which are going to be the same in this case. So I have the integrated LUFS set up to -1.7. So this is the LUFS measurement for this sine wave at this specific frequency. If I bring that down and I reset my values, now I'm getting a quieter loudness signal at -2.8 LUFS. If I bring that up to 1000 Hertz, it's going to do the opposite, and now my loudness levels are going to be higher, reaching -1 LUFS, and so on. If I reach 10,000 hertz and reset my values, now I'm at plus 2.4 LUFS. So this is why LUFS is useful to measure out perceived loudness. Okay, now let's look at all of those parameters that we have on a LUFS meter. Now, if you don't have a Cubase Pro, that means you don't have the control room, so you don't have the LUFS metering system in Cubase. You can actually use a free plugin called Ulean Loudness Meter 2, which is a free plugin that will give you access to a LUFS metering system. And it actually looks very good. It's going to do the same thing as I have in Cubase Pro. So I'm going to leave the link down below if you want to go and download this free plugin. Very useful if you're not using Cubase Pro or you're working with a different DAW. But for now, I'm going to use the LUFS meter in Cubase. It's going to be the same parameters found on other plugins. So let's first look at the parameters that we have on a LUFS meter. We have the momentary max, which is the loudness level at this moment. Then we have the short term, and I'm going to show you how I use the short term value. Now, the short term is the loudness level for a short period of time. Now, in Cubase, it is based on a time window of 3 seconds. I'm not sure if that's the same value used on other plugins, but in Cubase, it's going to measure the loudness over a window of 3 seconds. Now, for integrated LUFS, this is the loudness level from start to stop. Okay, so the minute you start to play your song, it's going to start measuring the integrated LUFS until you stop the song. So to get an accurate measurement of a full song, you need to start playing from A to Z, okay, from the top of the song to the end of the song, so you can get a precise LUFS integrated value. And this value, the integrated LUFS value, is what you need to know if your song is loud enough for streaming services. Then if we go down, we have the range, which is the difference between the quietest part of the signal and the loudest part of the signal. And the measurement is LU, which stands for loudness unit. Now, as far as LUFS goes, this stands for loudness units full scale. Not important to remember, but this is what it stands for. Then we have the True Peak, which is our True Peak level in dB. And then we have time, which is the time taking to measure the integrated value, the integrated LUFS value. So this is essentially what you need to know as far as LUFS parameters go. Now, let's talk about streaming services and what they suggest you and what is the limit as far as what to reach for when it comes to LUFS. Now, for most streaming services out there, like Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, and so on, they are going to suggest a level of -14 LUFS. If you send something louder than -14 LUFS, they will bring it down. So all productions will have the same loudness, perceived loudness level. So this way, you're not going to end up going from one song to another and having to turn down the volume of the next song that is louder. You know, the loudness of all the songs are going to be very, very close to each other. And that is the goal of using a loudness measurement like LUFS. So this is what we need to keep in mind. We need to reach the level of -14 LUFS. Now, does it matter if you upload a song that is a bit louder than that limit? It doesn't matter at all. At some point, it's a personal choice. Now, if we talk True Peak for streaming services, this is also very important. You know, when we reach 0 DBFS, we are starting to peak. So in digital recording, the goal is always to stay below the 0 DBFS point. So what is the perfect level to set up your limiter at, the output level of your limiter, or basically the ceiling point, which is the maximum level where the signal is going to hit before it's going to get compressed or limited. So most streaming services will suggest a ceiling point of -2 dB to -1 dB. Now, you probably heard before that a ceiling point can be as high as -0.1 or -0.3 dB. And that was the case for years when the CD format was the main music format. So when you mastered a song to be printed on a CD format, -0.1 or -0.3 dB was the kind of a sweet spot ceiling level. But for streaming services, they will suggest -1 to even down to -2 dB. And that is because when you upload your WAV file to streaming services, most of them are going to convert that WAV file into other audio formats to fit their platforms. So by having a ceiling point that is too high, you're going to risk adding some unwanted distortion or artifacts to your signal. So that's why they suggest a maximum peak level or ceiling level at -2 to -1 dB. So let's go back into our mastering session and look on how that looks like. So I have my mix right here, and I have also a limiter. This one is the FabFilter Pro L. This is the one that I usually use. It's a very precise limiter. You can also use the one out of your DAW, like the limiter version in Cubase. Now, I have to say that this limiter plugin in Cubase is a bit less precise than what I get with the FabFilter Pro L. So I'm going to use this one for this video. So now, the first thing that I'm going to do is to set up the output to -1. So this is going to be my ceiling level. So this one is set up to -1. And I'm going to activate my limiter, but my gain is going to stay at 0 for now. Now I'm going to listen to my song, but I'm going to focus on the loudest part of the mix, which is the end part right here. You can visually see it very easily, where I have like quieter parts and louder parts. So I'm going to focus on the loudest part of the song for now. Okay, now the master is too quiet. My true peak level, if we look here on the right, is at -3.1. So the first thing I'm going to do here is to boost the gain of my limiter, okay, to around 3.5, and let's listen again. Okay, cool. So now this is the trick that I want to share with you. Now that I have my true peak level at -1, my signal is going to start to compress because it's going to reach the ceiling of -1, and then whatever is going to exceed that ceiling point is going to be compressed. It's not going to go past the ceiling point. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to focus on the short term. Right now the integrated is at -13.1 for the 9-second time frame, but I'm not going to look at the integrated value yet. I'm going to only focus on the short term for now. Okay, now my short-term value for this section is at around -14 LUFS. So my loudest part is at the right level for streaming services. But the problem is that this song is very dynamic. I have like quieter parts. Now that can be very good, a very good way to get close to your LUFS level if you're mastering a, I don't know, EDM song which has like the same level in dynamics all the way through. But in this case, now I'm dealing with some quieter parts, blended with some louder parts on this mix. So making my final decision only on the loudest part is not gonna work because my general LUFS level is gonna be lower than -14 LUFS. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to compensate for that. So I'm gonna aim at the loudest part of my song. I'm gonna aim for a level of -10 LUFS at the highest -9. And this is a tip that I got from my good friend Ian Shepherd, which is a mastering engineer down in the UK. He's one of the best mastering engineer out there. You can actually check the video that I did with Ian maybe a couple months ago talking about loudness. I'm going to leave the link on top. So the goal is to aim for a level of -10, between -10 and -9 LUFS at the max. And this is by looking at the short-term value only. And then that will compensate for the quieter parts of the song. And this only applies if you have like a dynamic song like the one that I have right now. So let's try this out. I went at around -10 to -10.5 LUFS short term for the loudest part of the song. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to listen to the full song from A to Z and then come back with the integrated LUFS level. Now, after playing the entire song, I have an integrated LUFS level at -14.3. which is perfect. This is the sweet spot for Spotify and most streaming services. Now, this doesn't mean that you can't master louder than that. You could. This is a personal choice at some point. But something we need to understand is to get a louder level, I'm going to have to increase the input gain of my limiter. And of course, I am going to end up with a louder result. But I'm going to have to compromise on the dynamic range of my master. So by increasing the level of your limiter, you're going to get way more gain reduction, which will reduce the dynamic range of your signal. And this is something that we need to realize. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that, to a certain point. So there's always a compromise somewhere. And at the end, Spotify and all those streaming services will bring down your master to an average of -14 LUFS anyways. So, as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to try to reach to be close to -14 to -12 LUFS, and I'm going to be good with that. But again, that can depend on the type of production you work on, So if you're producing EDM music, maybe that is going to be different. Maybe a louder master is going to be a bit more suitable. So at this point, it's a personal choice, but those are my starting point guidelines. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bounce my master and I'm going to upload it on a very cool website that is going to tell me if I'm going to get penalized by streaming services, meaning that I'm going to know if the streaming services are going to bring down the level of my master. So let's check this out. This site is called the Loudness Penalty Analyzer, and I talked about that before on other videos. Actually, Ian Shepherd, I was telling you about earlier, is behind this very cool website. And there's also a plugin version that is very cool to use, very cheap to purchase. If you want to, I'm going to leave again the link down below. But this one is free. The website is free of use, so you select your file. So let's go and select this one, and I'm going to upload it. And this is going to tell me what's going to happen once I upload my master to streaming services. So this is the result that I get. So according to this Loudness Penalty Analyzer, YouTube Music is going to bring it down by 0.7 dB, Spotify down by 2.3 dB, and so on. Now with these results, I know that my master is loud enough for streaming services. So there you go, my friends. This is my mastering tip for you. If you have any questions or comments, leave everything down below, and don't forget to share, to like, to subscribe to this channel if you are new here. Until next time, take care and see you.